Okay, so the project life cycle. The project life cycle is the sum of all the phases. Let's jump to the second, the middle chart here, in a typical engineering project. Planning, engineering, procurement, construction, and handover. Those are 5 phases of this project, or generic phases: concepts and feasibility, design and development, implementation, commissioning, handover. Those are the phases. So the sum of the phases of the project is termed the project life cycle. I've done some interesting work with clients where we've set up project management processes for them. And the first thing that we do is to establish a life cycle. We say, what are the names of the phases that you're going to have in your company's life cycle? And then from there, we'll workshop through key milestone dates, what deliverables need to be produced, and all the project management processes that need to be carried out, and all the project management documents, such as the business case and the charter and the risk register and so on, that are needed. Okay, folks, this diagram very nicely illustrates the project life cycle. You've got there some phases, phase gates, and the name, does anyone know why they're called phase gates?
You need to finish one so you can open it to get to the next one.
Yes. And is there a chance that the gate might not open for you?
Yes.
Yes, there is. If the one phase is not completed, then obviously you can't move over to the next phases.
Yes, very good. But you might have a case where you finished one phase. I mean, so that is you're 100% right there, Colin. All rules have to be completed. The right signatures obtained from the relevant people, all that stuff done. Sibu?
As well, I think that gate is quite important because while you're busy with the planning or whatever phase you're in, conditions may change and then it might be deferred or cancel the project. But mainly to ensure that all the requirements in that phase have been met before the approval to the next phase.
Yes, very good. So both those things, so what you and Colin are both saying, you've got to meet all the requirements in that phase, but also you touched on something important there, Sibu, and that is that it could be that the project is cancelled or put on hold at a particular phase gate. And it's a very nice descriptive term. You come to this gate, you stand at the gate, and you wait for management approval for the gate to move into the next phase. Pre-projects, outside of the project and not generally examined in the PMP exam, is possibly a needs analysis, then the writing or compiling of the business case, and the benefits management plan.
Andrew?
Colin, yeah.
Hi. My apologies. I'm looking for this the emoji where you can basically raise your hand, but I don't find it on my screen. But be it as it may, earlier on you spoke about tailoring.
Yes.
This process where we are at now, the project life cycle, does this basically integrate with regards to tailoring? I see with like you have engineering projects, then it's subdivided into different platforms. Can you also basically like level that with tailoring?
Just rephrase the question, I don't quite understand it.
Okay, so earlier on we spoke about tailoring.
Yes.
The foundational concepts.
Yes, yes.
Right. So my question to you is, where we're at now on this page where the project life cycle, is this exactly, does this basically touch on tailoring of the project life cycle? I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
No, I do understand, yes, not really. The project life cycle is not the project life cycle, the phases,
Okay.
industry dependent. It's something that I'm going to clarify right at the end of today. You've got two different things. You've got the project life cycle, the different phases. That depends on from one industry to the next, from one company to the next, what phases they have. The project management processes are generic of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling.
Yeah, all that processes. Okay.
Now, those processes, those are the and adjust for your project. You select the processes you need, because there are 49 processes in total that fit into initiation, planning, execution, monitoring, control, and closure. In those 5 process groups, there are actually 49 processes. And tailoring is selecting the ones you need, and also even digging down further. And in a particular process, you have different tools and techniques. So, for example, there's a process called Develop the Project Charter. There'll be a whole lot of tools and techniques there for use that you can use in developing a project charter, but you're not going to use all of them. Tailoring will be to say, well, I need this and that tool and technique. I'm going to scrap the others. Is that clear?
Yeah, that is very much clear. Thank you very much. So as per what you're saying, as per your industry, basically where you're working in, you will filter those things. But
Yes.
Thanks very much for that explanation.
So you don't tailor the phases, you tailor the processes and the tools.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so early in the project, the project charter, very early in the project charter is compiled. And this is a document that's could be seen as a very high level project plan, very, very high level. The charter it's really a document that authorizes the project and gives the project manager the authority to start using company resources. It'll include things like, we'll come to it later on when we do initiation. There's a section on the charter and there's a whole detailed, a lot of detail on what's in the charter. So it'll have things like the project must finish by such and such a date or take so many months to complete. We've got a budget of so many rand or dollars for this project. We've identified the following 3 key risks that the project manager must be aware of. The procurement strategy and philosophy this to be used is as follows. It's that kind of information that it provides guidelines to you as a project manager for then planning and managing your project. That's the charter. And then from that, the project manager moves forwards and prepares the detailed project plans. And the PMBOK refers to that as a document called the Project Management Plan. It's one document that comprises all your project plans, your scope, your schedule, your costs, budgets, your resource planning, your quality management plan, and every other aspect of planning you've done. In post-project, we have benefits realization. And that's looking at using your benefits management plan to say, well, have we achieved the benefits that the project was intended to achieve? So folks, what I've done this morning is really looked at the big picture of a whole lot of things. This life cycle from beginning to end, what happens before it, what happens after it. Why are we doing projects? We're doing them to create benefits. How are projects structured into programs and portfolios? It's looking at the big picture, the whole thing, before we start zooming into smaller details on this course. Now, here's an interesting graph, which I would like your feedback. And for those, some people are battling to find the hands raised signal on your screen. My screen looks different from yours. Tell us, can someone tell us where that's found on your menu bar.
Look at the bottom. When you're looking, if you move the mouse down to the bottom, you should have a toolbar that comes up, and it's got something that says, it's on the right, it says reactions with a smiley face.
So you move the mouse down to the bottom of the screen, and then this toolbar comes up. Can everyone see that?
Yeah, I see it. So I have a thumbs up and a clap hand, so that
Yeah,
would
yeah.
suffice for
I see
hands
that.
raised.
I see that Tasha's found hers. Well done, Tasha. Okay. Okay. All right, folks. In this graph, we've got concept design, implementation, and commission. We've got the project lifecycle at the bottom. And it shows how risk and uncertainty start off high and decrease to nothing at the bottom, at the end of the project. What explanation can you give for that?
Okay, if I may come in.
Len, yeah?
My understanding is at the concept phase, there's so many unknown factors. For that reason, the risk is very high. But when you get to the design phase and the implementation phase, you now at the position whereby now you've got more information and you can be able to take judgment of, will this project be a success or not? And the challenges that might incur in the process. And if there might be challenges to be incurred in the process, you design engineer to put controls on those challenges. And as you design engineer, the risk minimizes. So if you can check your graph, during a design and implication, the risk minimizes, and at the commissioning phase, the risk is very minimal because of now you are to start the plant or to have a final product. You can't have a final product with maximum risk. There wouldn't be an engineering sense in you engineering this solution, but when you deliver it, it still have engineering risk. So that's the 2 cents from my side.
That's a very good explanation, Glenn. Thank you for that. It's very good. Does anyone want to add to that? Sibu?
I think it's along the lines that Tato just indicated. As we start, obviously there is a lot of risk and uncertainty, as he mentioned. And then as you move along the design and implementation, that's when you implement the mitigation for those risks that have been identified. By the time when you implement, obviously you're just managing the risk to minimal. That's what I understand from concept to commission. The risk increases as you apply the mitigation.
That's very good, yes. As you mitigate, as you move to the project, you mitigate risks and risk becomes less and less. So a very simple example of this is you've identified, you're doing a building project, you're on a site with a lot of underground services. You've identified that as a risk, or maybe it's bad soil, a risk of encountering bad soil conditions, unexpected ones. But once you've built the foundations, laid the foundations, and you're out of the ground, that risk is past. Whatever happened or didn't happen, that risk no longer exists. So that's yet another risk that has been worked out of the system. Now, what about the other graph? The cost of change is increasing.
I think Robert raised his hand, unless if I can come in.
Robert, have you got something you want to say there? You're muted.
How's that?
Okay, yes.
Well, as clear from the graph, as the life cycle progresses through the project, you've actually crystallized a lot of the unknowns in the project, and your cost of changes are becoming more and more committed as you go along. And in the beginning, in your concepts, as you pointed out in your example in the harbour project, you have a major influence on the costs, and you can actually get them defined, and there's a lot of scope for change at this point, where you can actually change designs which have a major impact on the costs. As you progress through the life cycle of the project, any changes that you might make to your original concept and design start to cost more and more, because you've already part spent on it and part committed on a lot of your implementation side of things. And as you come to commissioning, if you then decide to make changes, that's when you are actually incurring your most cost along the project life cycle.
That's good. Mike.
Yeah, so another, to add on to that, it's exactly what Robert was saying. My opinion on it was also, as you're implementing, if any changes often result in redoing work that's already been done, which obviously adds to the costs. And then when you start getting to the commissioning stages, you've also had a lot of demobilization from site, so resources might have to be brought back, which is then remobilizing and establishing on site, which add more costs than if it was done towards the beginning of the project when everyone's still on site.
Ramesh?
Okay, hi. Also from a concept and design stage, you're getting feedback and you're getting sign-off from your stakeholders. So I think they're fully supporting the design, etc. So as the project moves forward, the cost will actually start increasing. Whereas during the design stage and concept stage, the cost can be offset if you don't get sign-off from the main stakeholders, etc., customers or clients, etc.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Glenn, do you have something to add to that? Your hand is up.
My view on this graph is, I'll make an example of building a chrome plant or mine. At the concept phase, you incur cost for human resources. And at the design phase, you might be incurring costs for human and computers and design tools. At the implementation, it's when now you buy hardware, you buy pumps, you buy tanks. That's why your graph at the implementation with regards to cost, it will be high. But with my view, at the commissioning, the cost should be minimum because of the plant, major equipment should be installed by then, and you are testing the operation. So my view is at the commissioning, there shouldn't be much cost as it is represented in this graph. The maximum of the cost, it will be at the implementation where you buy the physical hardware. That's my
yeah, it's a cost of changes. So you're right, there shouldn't be a high cost in commissioning of changes if the project has been run properly. But if someone comes in and requests changes to designs in the commissioning stage, you now have to change a whole lot of, let's say it's a water treatment or wastewater treatment plant. You've now got to make changes to the piping and to the valves and to all sorts of stuff, and it's already been built. The costs there are much higher than if you back in the design stage where you just change a few drawings. Yeah. Good. Well, those are some excellent, I don't know if Ramesh, if your hand is still up, you still want to say something more?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
You're done. Okay. You can drop your hand then. Just lower that virtual hand of yours. All right, so this graph then wraps this topic up of the life cycles by showing how the project life cycle is just a subset of the product life cycle, which has possibly phases of formulation. The acquisition phase is your project, your design, concept design, implementation, and commissioning. And then a long operation phase, which might have upgrade projects, and finally a disposal phase. That's really just for interest's sake to see again how our projects fall into the bigger picture.